Hey guys, me Josh here. Another episode of Warships Weekly, the weekly podcast where we talk about the current state of the game of World of Warships, how we've been playing, and what's changed, the good, the bad, and the awful. Mika, how are you, good sir?
I'm good, sir. Thank you for having me.
So it's our podcast. I'm glad you're here. 5.3, we are now a week into it. The changes I think have been overall pretty decent. Some of the changes were good. I think we're seeing a lot more cruisers now. Destroyers, I think it's all worked out pretty well. Mini ships are changed. One thing that we want to kind of mention that we missed actually from last week was expert marksmanship. The whole thing was about basic firing training and advanced firing training, and those kind of took the spotlight, and both of us kind of just overlooked expert marksmanship, which really does affect like kind of the lower tiers, and with the turret rotation being a lot lower and affected like that, completely overpassed this and didn't even see it. Guy from the comments on one of the last videos actually pointed out, how did we both miss that?
Just reading failure, man. I don't know what to tell you. I think I was just so distraught over the fact that my Murmansk was no longer going to be Bay as a result of the distance change. So it's like, yeah, I couldn't believe it either. I was like, what is he talking
I
about?
was
And I
like, this
actually had
dude's
to go
wrong.
back.
This dude's
Yeah.
wrong. I was like being all defensive, like, you're crazy. You're wrong. You're wrong. I was like, holy shit, he's right. We messed up. We're not perfect. We're not perfect, man.
Yeah, exactly. Human beings for sure. But yeah, double shot to cruisers then. Not only is there distance, the ones that were affected by the distance changes, also affected by turret rotation now as well. So not only do they not fire as far, they might not be able to get their turrets on target nearly as quick. So definitely kind of a ugh situation depending on what ship you're piloting at the moment,
Yeah.
or
You know,
sailing, I should say.
I've been playing. I played the Merman since the change. I've played the Phoenix since the change. You can definitely see it. You have to play a little bit more on the wild side. You're a little bit more in range. You can't kind of just sit back and outrange some battleships. You can't outrange a Wyoming. You can't outrange a New York anymore. And it kind of makes you get up there a little bit. They're still amazing ships. They still really are. But definitely a huge hit to them. Really though, I think a good Murmansk, a good cruiser at that tier, and still really wrecks. And then some of the other ones aren't like the destroyers aren't really affected by it in the lower tiers. So those are still really fun to play. But yeah, definitely a huge hit, biggest hit by that. So really a triple hit to those guys for those lower to mid tier, and of course the Mogami, those cruisers, big hit.
Absolutely, yeah. New Mexico battleship drivers rejoice. Cleveland's can no longer outrange you. That's got to
Hmm.
feel so nice. And in my mind, actually brings up something that I wanted to discuss, which is Fuso v New Mexico. Does that argument change at all? Is one ship kind of maybe more on par now as a result of that change? Because I have to imagine one of the reasons that people didn't favor the New Mex over the Fuso was a result of the distance in the shot travel distance for both those ships. So
I know that's really like, I think tier 6 is a really really good tier for battleships. I think tier 6, tier 7, tier 8, now that the Colorado's gotten its buff, tier 8 I think is a great tier for battleships. Tier 6 though, I think you see it was Fuso in my opinion. New Mexico could get close enough. It was a monster, but it had trouble doing that. It was slow. The range wasn't that good. Now that things have to be within your firing range to even hurt you, I think it's definitely a bit of a rise. It's not so much a talk about New Mexico versus Fuso. It's now a New Mexico versus everything else again. The Fuso has never been an amazing battleship killer. It's always been the Fuso just murders cruisers, and now the New Mexico, which is a better battleship killer, is now an amazing cruiser killer. So does the New Mexico become the strongest tier 6? I don't know. The Fuso can engage stuff from farther away, but the New Mexico, it, like you said, you can't just get burned from afar and not do anything without like a spotter plane or something like that. Maybe it is a bit of a turn. Maybe the USN maybe takes one more tier away from the Japanese battleship line. Who knows?
yeah, exactly. And there's AA considerations as well. I know there's not much on either ship at that tier, but I think the New Mexico tends to be able to at least fend for itself in that regard if it finds itself out on an island, without much cover from cruisers. And its dispersion is much better. So it has a tighter dispersion pattern. So if you get a nice barrage off on a cruiser, that cruiser is most likely going down. So
Yeah.
um, I was not much of a New Mexico player prior to the changes coming in, and I definitely revisited it, and I found it to be much more enjoyable. So
It
for
was
sure.
kind of, even when we like fired around on the team battles, it was a, are you gonna roll Fuso or New Mexico? And I was rolling Fuso, and you guys were rolling New Mexico, and you guys were able to put out a lot of damage. It's like, I think Fuso. It's in my list of ships to rebuy. You know, just rebought the Amagi. Want to rebuy the New Mexico. Want to rebuy the Colorado. I think I'll probably buy the New Mexico next. You get in, it's not too expensive, and I think it's a really, really good tier 6 battleship now, especially now that, hey, cruiser, you want to piece this, you got to at least, we're gonna fight it out. You got to at least put yourself in danger's way. So, like, actually, a good point though on battleships. Well done, bud. One ship that was hit really hard from the last patch was the Mogami, and I hadn't really played the Mogami at all. You know, basically, if you have an Atago, you don't need the Mogami. I've been telling people, if you have the Atago, feel free to sell the Mogami. I went back and revisited the Mogami. Everyone's like, "Oh, the Mogami's trash now. It's terrible. It's terrible." That ship is not trash. Not trash at all. That ship is still awesome. If you don't have the Atago, it's an Atago with a little bit shorter range, a worse torpedo arc, and no heal. Other than that, that thing is still a monster. A monster of a ship. I mean, I think the Mogami, it's not the fire breather from a long range that it was a couple weeks ago. With the 203s on that thing, it still hits like a truck, man. Had a lot of fun playing it the couple games I did, and it's still scary good. Scary good.
Yeah, definitely have to be a little bit more coy in it, obviously, because you don't have a recovery skill in that heal. But for sure. I mean, it's still a tier 8 cruiser. It's still going to be able to dish out damage. It's still going to be able to potentially half salvo a DD, and sink it. So yeah, I mean, there's no reason to state that the Mogami is utter trash. It's just when compared to a premium ship that has a bunch of premium consumables and added goodies, sure, it's not going to hold up. But as far as tier 8 cruisers go, it does its job and seems to do it well enough to maintain itself. So
I think the hate that it was getting, it's just like the Cleveland now. Is the Cleveland getting a lot of hate now? It's not as strong. I think it's still very strong. Well, I mean, the Mogami got like a lot of hate and a lot of because of the change because it wasn't quite the long range fighter. But I mean, I would still take it consistently over a New Orleans. I mean, the HE, it's Japanese 203 HE, man. It hits fucking hard, has a good fire chance, very stealthy. I think that the either it can or it can't stealth torp. It's very, very close in that line. I think it's like a 9.8 with the conceal. I think right around there. I have to double check. It's a good shit. People are saying it's awful. People said the Mogami is awful. Absolutely wrong. The Mogami is still strong. It still hits like a truck. People who ran 203s on it aren't even affected. And I played it and I was like, wow, this is still a good ship.
right, yeah, people don't like nerfs, right? And there's always that knee-jerk overreaction. We saw it with carriers here a few patches ago, where carriers were basically non-existent, and we're starting to find them creep their way back into the game, even at high tiers, which is good to see, because they're necessary, even though anybody that's not a carrier hates them.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the same thing with Mogami, I think. It's just kind of an overreaction. People are probably talking without even really having gone and tried it out. At least you went out and played some games. I have not had a chance this week to test the Mogami's, the changes specific to the Mogami, but so I have to take your word for it. But yeah, I mean, there's no reason to think that it couldn't at least hold its own. So
Oh,
yeah.
definitely. A couple of the ships, I've been playing, grinding the line. I'm going up I'm away the Shima. Just got the Rune. Just got the Baltimore. Almost have the Khabarovsk, the Russian tier 10. So kind of very destroyer cruiser heavy right now. And I'm falling in love with some of these. I mean, destroyers are amazingly fun. I'm falling in love with cruisers again. I'm playing two tier 9 cruisers. One that has a lot of people don't talk about too much because a lot of people don't have it in the Rune. But I'm playing the Baltimore right now as well, putting more and more games in. And the Rune, short and sweet, it's amazing. The Rune is amazing. I'm excited to get it fully upgraded. I'm excited for the Hindenburg. I mean, this thing just rips up cruisers, super accurate, good range, murders battleships, fantastic ship. Literally, that's all you need to know about the Rune. It's awesome. Get it. I didn't like the Hipper too much, but people are loving the Hipper. Rune, awesome, fantastic line. Play that line. For the Baltimore, though, people lose interest. I mean, people always ask me, what's a great line to start out with? I go, USN's awesome up to tier 6. 7 and up are kind of rough. Tried playing Japanese line. It's more consistently good throughout. I'm on the Baltimore. Probably one of the most hated USN cruisers in the entire line. That thing is fucking awesome too. It's crazy. Its dispersion is maybe a foot. I'm holding up a small circle with my hands. That's about the size of a potato. It seems like you shoot this thing, and I think I don't even have the range upgrade. It's stock. You shoot an entire AP broads or AP salvo. It's a sniper at 16.8 kilometers. I think is what it is with the module upgrade. Amazing. This thing, it's a good cruiser. It's a really, really good cruiser. The New Orleans, I mean, people, either they love or they hate the New Orleans and Pensacola. The end of the New Orleans, I really enjoyed playing it. AP is insane on those. Same with the Balti. I'm really, really enjoying the Rune. Amazing. Baltimore, pretty damn good. I like the ship. I'm excited to get it fully upgraded and, of course, get the Des Moines.
Awesome, yeah, and I've heard the armor on those ships as you kind of get past that tier 7 kind of awkward stage gets really good, so they can kind of start deflecting some lighter shells and stuff, and if they're fortunate enough, maybe even a random BB salvo that's not targeted quite as well. I've myself stalled out on the Pensacola. I have such a tough time playing that ship. The detection is just way too long, in my opinion. I mean, you can see that ship almost from its spawn point, which is just insane. I don't understand why Wargaming has that ship set up the way it is. And it's got no armor on top of it, so it's an instant cannon fodder for battleships, and it's really rough to play. But it sounds like the rewards are worth it, so maybe I'll have to revisit that here.
I was playing the Baltimore, and I citadeled an Amagi, broadside Amagi, of course, but at 15 kilometers. I was just like, what? I mean, the AP is no joke on those ships, and you can just punish battleships, murder cruisers, broadside. I mean, for how accurate it is, you get one good shot, you can delete. I mean, it's almost like a battleship, it seems like. Really good. I recommend it, man. Get past the Pensacola with just its pure detection. I don't think the Pensacola is terrible either, in my opinion. I kind of like the ship. It's an acquired taste, that line, and I think it'll be a lot better if we start seeing some aircraft carriers back in the game. I think it'll definitely serve its purpose more in.
I'm glad to hear that, actually. It makes me feel good to know that there's more ships with more potential out there, right, than there might have been previously. And maybe we were all too quick to judge and just reading forum posts and kind of listening to people's word of mouth that, oh, these ships are garbage. Well, maybe they just don't play them well, or maybe they don't understand the niche role that so many of these ships fall into, be it destroyer, cruiser, or battleship.
I mean, don't get me wrong. There's still cruisers. My Rune was in the wrong place at the wrong time for the wrong half second of the game, and the Yamato took me from 100 to 0 in one salvo. That still happens. It's cruiser life. We all know that life. They're very dangerous, man. Very fun ships. Everyone quit giving them shit. They're fun ships. Fun ships. Another ship that came out recently is the Lo Yang. Were you on the fence to getting a Lo Yang?
Yeah, because I've got the fully spec Benson with the stealth captain skill, and I was kind of asking you because I know, since you're in, what is it?
Club
Team
Wargaming.
Club Wargaming, there we go. Yeah, since you're in
right.
Club Wargaming, you get a little bit early access to some of the ships to kind of test them out and provide feedback and stuff. And I was kind of asking you, like, off the cuff, like, hey, what's your thoughts on this? Is it going to be worth it? And you're just kind of like, eh. I was like, all right, well, that's not very encouraging, but
that's how it is, man. It's Benson is awesome. Now, here is the one thing. When I play the Lo Yang, I have fun. I like that play. I like that play style. That destroyer is very strong at that tier. But I am much more confident in myself being an offensive threat in the Benson than I am in the Lo Yang. If I am in the Lo Yang and I see a Benson on my team, I'm like, this is going to be tough. In the Benson, if I see the Benson on the other team, I'm like, I'm pretty sure I got this guy. It's that one gun difference, man. It really is. If they went back to Season 2 of Ranked, where the Benson only had 4 guns. If they went back to that, the Lo Yang, I think, would be much stronger. Wouldn't have the deficit. Right now, I think if somebody has the Benson, because I think you can get the premium camo on the Benson. I know you can in some ships. I always forget which ones have like the new quote unquote premium camo that you can buy with the balloons. I don't know if the Benson has it or not. I think it does actually. I
I
don't
know
know.
the Fletcher does. I don't know. I honestly don't know offhand
Yeah,
either if
I always
the
forget which ones have them. I know
Benson's.
like the Shokaku has them and certain ships have them. But it's like the Lo Yang is very meh. Literally in my notes, I'm looking at my computer screen now. Lo Yang is meh. It's if you have the Benson, I really don't see a need to buy the Lo Yang unless you're somebody who really only likes to play tier 8 destroyers and you want that premium. The like the sonar is nice. It's like, oh, I'm gonna go hunt DDs now with my sonar. There are very few times where I'm like, oh, all right, I'm gonna go hunt this DD now because I have sonar. It has happened, but would I rather trade sonar for having speed boost and extra gun? No, I would rather have the extra gun and the speed boost. It's it's not a bad ship. I just feel like it's an inferior Benson. I really do. Um, that's just how I've seen it. Like I said, I'm much more secure, much more confident in myself when I'm in a Benson. I really am. Faster torps on the Benson, more guns. Uh, it's it's a better ship. Lang's not bad. It's just not as good.
Sure. Do you think? Okay, so curious.
Yep.
Do you find that the lack is it a psychological thing, just
It may
not
be.
knowing you have that fifth gun? I mean, or do you find yourself actually getting outperformed in a duel situation with your other tier 8 DDs when you're
Definitely
mixing it
that.
up?
I have noticed that one situation was actually my latest one where I got my solo warrior. It was a perfect situation that it was on like one of the Solomon Islands. Is that one of the new ones that it's the A is kind of in the bottom left corner and C is on the like the top right corner, and then B's in the middle where all the destroyers kind of go. I think it's that one. Um, I knew the Benson was on B, and I went into him and fought him, and I was like, "Fuck, this dude's gonna kill me." Like he's just out damaging me. And of course, the whole RNG thing about losing a turret. You knock out one of his, you're kind of even ground. But I'm like, shit, this dude's gonna kill me, and it's not because I'm missing my shots. It's just because he's hitting me with more shots. If I was in a Benson, I would have felt much more secure. Literally, the only reason I beat this guy, and then we end up winning the game, was because I had help from other people. The sole reason. I had another like a Tago or something behind me that ended up hitting him with a couple shots, and then we killed him. I feel like it's a weaker ship.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely. I mean, you got one less gun. That's what 500-600 extra damage potential per salvo.
Yeah, which is like every
Depending on
3 seconds.
dispersion. Right, exactly. So I mean, that adds up. That's basically that Benson's going to be able to make up the ground if you have the additional health over the course of a couple salvos, and is essentially outpacing you DPS wise. So I could definitely see where
Alpha damage,
that's
bro.
scary. Right.
The
Don't
alpha
get me started
damage.
on the Fubuki, man.
There you go.
Fubuki.
There you go. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, this past week, I've still been playing a lot of higher tiers. I'm still having fun. I'm having a lot of fun. I noticed that the game's still very dependent on destroyers right now. Although with carriers, I feel like the game is getting a little bit more balanced again, which is good. It's good to see a carrier population again.
In the second half of the week, my playtime dropped off. I was kind of looking around and looking at some other games to play. There's a few other titles coming out that I've kind of got some interest in, and looking to find something to balance out against World of Warships, because I know you've mentioned it on your stream. This game can make you go flipping crazy. You can lose your
Absolutely.
mind and go into a spiral, the likes of which you've never seen, where you're just raging. It's not that I don't enjoy the game, and I'm happy to hear you say that CVs are making a comeback, because I'm number one CV hater world, but I still realize there's a necessary place for them because they cancel out battleships and DDs. And for me, the last few weeks, especially since 0.5.3 hit, high tiers especially have just felt like what I've affectionately called torp dodge simulator, where
Yep.
everybody's sitting at max range, battleships are trying to sell each other from 20 kilometers out, nobody's really engaging. The destroyers, of course, will go and try and take caps, and there's some fun shenaniganry going on there, but overall it's like it's just torps everywhere and trying to keep your battleship from getting completely wrecked by Shima torps. And so if carriers are back in the game, that means more spotting. That means Shimas have to play more defensive than they did before. and game's meta shifts. So I'm glad to hear that. That's good. So
And this whole little section right here is a perfect segue into the state of the game kind of segment of our podcast. Where I've been playing lots of high tiers. I'm having a lot of fun. Majority of the time when I'm playing higher tiers, I tend to run a pretty balanced division. Like one destroyer, one battleship. In higher tiers, it's one, if there's a carrier, it's a very good game usually. Something's gonna be it's old school World of Warships where everything has a role. Destroyers are being spotted. Can you kill the destroyers fast enough before they just rip your face off? When there's not a carrier, it's can my destroyers kill their destroyers? That's why I think you have seen a huge push for USN destroyers. Not so much Russians. I think Russians are still in a weird spot. You see them every once in a while. They're not as much of a threat, in my opinion. Don't get me wrong. A Kavaros running around wild is still a beast, but I'm more worried about a stealthy USN destroyer murdering my team. A Benson, a Fletcher, a Gearing. They will destroy Japanese destroyers, take caps, make your life hell. In my opinion, worse than a Japanese destroyer. Really, most of the time they tend to be faster, especially in Tier 8, Benson versus the Fuuki. But definitely it seems like when the CB's back, we got ourselves a good game again. I think we really do.
yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it certainly swings the game back to its natural state of balance for sure. And prior to the CBs coming back in a bigger way, it really became like you said, a situation where these USDDs are really responsible for controlling the tide of battle and the tide of engagement, the wins, the wheres, the what caps. And if they didn't do their jobs well, your team was pretty much done.
Absolutely.
As soon as they, were out of the match, it's like crap. Well, now we have no visibility, we have no spotting. We pretty much get to sit back and pray to God they don't torp us all down before we can maybe get ourselves back into this match.
I notice it the most, just like how it is. I've noticed it the most in like even my Kagero. What's the Kagero's job? Basically to murder battleships, hit cruisers with torps. But it's just like there are so many games where it's like in my Kagero, Tier 9 Japanese destroyer, I'm just like, man, I'm on anti-DD duty right now. It's my job to hunt these dudes down and try to find this guy and then hopefully kill him with my alpha damage guns. So it's like the DD role has definitely changed where it's cap, spot, torp. Now it's cap, anti-DD, spot, torp kind of thing. It's kind of weird. You got to have this whole new role of you can't be a little bitch and not shoot your guns anymore as a destroyer.
So might as well get some DPS out there, maybe force a battleship to turn or a cruiser to veer off its intended course. All those little nuances can shift the tide of battle. So
Wargaming just released today. It is the 1st of March, and they just released some new missions and new bundles. Now they've also released that the first, which I think is a long time coming, and one thing that's going to really, really help carrier population, is the Saipan is coming back to the game. It was back in, I believe, closed beta. It's now coming back as a premium aircraft carrier. I think this is long overdue. I've been talking about it a long time. I think Tier 6 is perfect for it. They don't know what tier it's going to be. I mean, somebody might have data mined it or whatever. I think it's great. A lot of the new missions are plane-based, which means a lot of carriers are going to be out there playing, which means that means a lot of cruisers are going to be out there playing, which means destroyers are out there. A small little spurt. I mean, how many times have you gone out and when the Tirpitz was for sale, when the Warspite was for sale again, when the Bliss was on sale, when the Lo Yang's on sale, that's all you see for like a couple games. So you have that Tier 4, if it is a Tier 6, I'm guessing, that Tier 4 to Tier 8 range is going to be absolutely filled with Saipans, whatever the range is, plus minus 2, is going to be filled with carriers. And I really, really do think in the future, you'll see a lot of people, who had the Saipan, start saying, well, this is fun, let's play another carrier. And then I think it'll be a huge, I don't know how long it will last, a huge boost to carrier population, which will rebalance the entire game. So yeah, I think it'll be a good balance for mid tiers. At 6 is, I think, kind of perfect. It hits the majority. I mean, 4 to 8, that's where everyone's kind of playing right now, because they almost need to play, because you have someone that grinds your gear a little bit, and it's high tier play right now.
Yeah, what to say, man? I have a few little gripes. So I'm just gonna go off on a little tangent here.
There
I
you
know you don't
go.
agree with me on all these points, and we'll get to that and we'll kind of discuss. But yeah, for me, high tiers is frustrating because cruisers fall off the map in terms of their survivability against battleships. That frustrates me. Prior to apparently a couple days ago, CV play was almost non-existent. That seems to be changing, which is a great sign. But prior to that, like I had mentioned previously in the podcast, you had the torp dodge simulator effect going on, where it was just a bunch of destroyers trying to duke it out, and everybody else just kind of caught in the crossfire. I feel like the engagements in high tier are fewer and farther between. There's just something different. Something changes when you queue up in a 9 and 10. I haven't fully put my finger on it yet, but the biggest gripe is the economy and the fact that it's really hard to grind a tier 9 unless you're using tier 8s and 7s and 6s to back it up and earn credits. Like, why is it that suddenly you really have to overperform in order to get credits to get to your tier 10? If anything, that tier 9 should be earning you a little bit more credits and helping you get to that tier 10 a little bit quicker than it would going from a 7 to an 8 or a 6 to a 7 and so forth. So I don't understand what the mechanics are. I've heard counter arguments to this that, well, if they made high tiers too easy to grind credits, then the mid game and low tiers would die. But I counter that argument by saying, well, they've changed matchmaking now to avoid seal clubbing, so that argument no longer holds water for me. So yeah, it's frustrating. I find myself a little bit disenfranchised because I generally have to play the Tirpitz, and don't get me wrong, the Tirpitz is a fantastic battleship, right? I have to play it more often than I'd like just because I need those credits to get those upgrades and to buy those upgrades for each ship at the tiers I unlock it. And it's just like, gosh, I'd much rather be playing the ship I just unlocked. But at tier 9, unless I'm sinking 3 ships, hitting 5 torps, and just doing a fantastic job for my team, if I happen to get sunk, it's so long credit factor and sometimes even lose credits. It's frustrating. I think and I know each patch they make tweaks and balances to what ships earn what credits and XP and all that, and I think they still need to iterate on that. In my opinion, I don't feel it's quite there yet.
I talked about this briefly on my stream the other day. I don't know how I don't find it possible for people without premium time to consistently play. It's I don't I find it even very hard on a loss. I feel like it's almost impossible, and on a bad win, I feel like you maybe break even. It's high. I think they bumped stuff down like 5% in certain places, 5-6% on cost, and it's definitely a little bit noticeable on my Yamato. But if you're going to be running premium repairs and consumables and you get sunk, and I mean, I think on the Yamato, you're looking at 260K, almost 300K just for that. If you are sunk in your Yamato and you use premium consumables, 300K, like right there. Just imagine that repair bill every time. And it's like, without premium, you're fucked, And it is that, okay, can I play 5 games with my Tirpitz and have decent games just so I can afford playing my Yamato a couple times? I tend to not run into credits too much. I play so much with viewers that I tend to bank. And I'm not leveling up a ton of ships. I guess right now, I'm kind of crunched. I just bought the Baltimore. I just bought the Rune. And now I'm about to buy like some tier 10s too. So, I mean, 9s, you're looking at about, on average, 8s, you're looking at about 20 million for everything. 9s, looking about 25 million. And 10s, you're probably looking right around 30 million for everything, just on the safe side for those. And I just rebought the Amagi. I was like, okay, it's going to be about 15 million. It was closer to like 18, 19 million for that. And that's a lot of credits. That's a lot of games of just banking money just to even be able to have the ability to play. And then you need to, if you do want to play, you got to have good games. So I really like high tiers right now, but the economy is pretty rough, and I don't know if that's Wargaming's thing to make you want to play more stuff, or lower tiers to be able to afford it. But I could see how that can rub people the wrong way, definitely for sure.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head and brought up a point that I didn't actually and probably hadn't thought about. Is it's got to be a scenario where they want to encourage people into purchasing that premium account and leveraging that to gain more credits
Absolutely.
and to at least be at a higher percentage chance to break even in some of these ships, right? And I'm not sitting here saying that I'm terrible at the game and like flooding credits out the door because I suck. I mean, I'm not terribly good at the game either. I would call myself an average player to slightly above average, but it's frustrating. Like I wish there was at least. I mean, I'm not saying they have to just be handing out credits hand over fist, but I definitely feel like if you had a bad game, it's a feels bad mechanic in my mind to put in a scenario where you're literally losing credits out of your bank that you earned that were probably pretty hard earned on other battles and in other scenarios. So definitely rough and tough for sure. The other issue I kind of mentioned and we'll circle back to is cruiser play. I don't have a whole lot of high tier cruisers mainly because I kind of got discouraged with just how hard they get hit, and they don't seem to have destroyers. And this is going to be kind of controversial, but I'll just throw it out there. Destroyers have a recovery mechanic. I know, right? Controversy. Anyway, in the form of smoke, smoke is a recovery mechanic in a sense because it's going to avoid damage. And avoiding damage is no different than healing, essentially. Somebody can't shoot you and can't do damage to you because you're in smoke unless they get extremely lucky on a salvo. That's as good as a heal in my mind. Plus, you get some added benefits on top of it. So in my mind, I classify that as a recovery mechanic in a sense. So destroyers have the recovery mechanic,
Right, it's in the street.
and yeah, and battleships have a heal, right? That's pretty strong on top of everything else, and a bunch of specs they can spec into to bolster those healing skills on top of it and make their fires burn less long and all this other stuff, right? Cruisers just kind of seem left out in the dark. I mean, they're just kind of there to support. They've got AA or the ability to use hydroacoustic, and that's kind of it. There's no recovery mechanic for them. So if they happen to find themselves in an ugly position, they're pretty much out of the battle and forced to shell from long range. And again, that's kind of a feels bad mechanic in my mind. I really think that Wargaming needs to potentially look at expanding the heal mechanic to a lot more ships to make it more even, right? You can set it up on a percentage basis, so it's balanced, but it gives ships the ability to stay in the battle and potentially play more aggressive. Because for me, at least, I don't enjoy these games where it's all long range. No, I enjoy the brawling aspect of the game. There's nothing funner to me than taking my Turpits or my Magi or my Azumo up into the front lines with another battleship, getting in there close, inside that 10 kilometers, and really duking it out. And that's usually not something that happens until the end of the game, and it seems to happen so much more in the mid tiers, and it's just so fun to see who's going to come out alive in those scenarios. But yeah, and so the cruisers themselves just feel like they just don't feel as able to kind of bounce back from a mistake. And I don't like that because the other ships have their kind of get out of jail free card or recovery mechanics. So
Nika wants his YOLO plays. Give it to him, Wargaming.
well, and to be fair, some of the high tier cruisers do have a heal. I get that. Send your emails to weeklywarships@gmail.com and tell me how dumb I am. That's fine. I get it. But the heal doesn't feel nearly as strong, and it just I don't know. They just it's rough. Like you said, cruiser life, man. It's been a theme in your channel for months. So
I'd
like
alone, man. I don't think you're alone.
yeah, and it's weird because it shifts somewhere between that upper middle tier to lower high tier. That 6-7 range. Everything kind of shifts for cruisers, and it becomes a lot more about finesse play. So maybe I'm just not that good. Maybe I haven't learned to adjust to that different mechanic. And you kind of spoke to that earlier tonight as well. So very possible.
There you go. There you go. Well, I mean, I don't think you're alone with the heals. I think that'd be nice. I think even tier 8 should get it. I think you hit a lot of nails on the head, really. I mean, I agree with the majority of stuff you just said. So, still, I'm finding the game fun. Overall, it's still good. We just need more. We need more content right now. It's definitely a lull in the game, and but it looks like there's some stuff on the horizon. So, as a streamer of the game, I'm very optimistic.
Yeah, for sure. The game is definitely at a place where it's like, well, what now? You know, a lot of the ships that I have left to grind and lines I have left to grind were not that compelling to me before. Some of the arguments you made tonight have kind of renewed my vigor to maybe not be so harsh on them and actually take a look and get my toes in those waters, right? And the water's warm and enjoy it, right? So
Cool, man. You gotta jump in. Don't worry about how cold it is.
Exactly. Head first, feet first, whichever. Just go out there and enjoy the game for what it is. So.
Good stuff. Good stuff. But yeah. that is going to be it for us, guys, this week for Warships Weekly, the weekly podcast on World of Warships, the state of the game, week in gaming, lots of changes, lots of stuff going on, and I think it was I think we covered almost everything this week. Watch as we miss on something, right?
Right.
Yeah, there you go. One thing a week. But yeah, guys, I have been me, Josh. You can check me out on twitch.tv/mejosh. Hit me up on twitter.com/mejoshtv. And also hit me up on YouTube, link down below.
And I have been Nicodemus81. Thanks so much for listening. Again, guys, I mentioned it earlier, but warshipsweekly@gmail.com. Let us know. Send us some emails. Send us some questions, comments, feedback. We want to hear that stuff. This podcast is for you. We want to put content out that you want to listen to and that you enjoy, and not focus as much on stuff that you don't particularly care about. So
Those what grinds your gears. Remember to like and subscribe, guys. We'll catch you next week. Peace, bros.